Hey guys, this is Red and Blue. We are back. PSG is back, Liga is back, and for our first game back, we did get the win against Paris FC at home in the Parc des Princes in the first Paris derby in nearly 40 years. 2-1 in a game that will honestly probably won't stay in our memories for a long, long time. There's a few things to talk about, quite a few positives, a few like more negative elements that I'll go over, and then a few things that are honestly like annoying me a fair bit. So I'll get my rant. I'll get my chance to rant. But let's just get straight into it. 2-1, we get the win. I think that's the most important part, getting the 3 points. We come back within 1 point of Lens and really open up a gap with Marseille and Lille behind us, who are now 7 points behind. So that's really like the very positive operation of the day. We'll still have to get past Lens, obviously, but at least like Marseille is really at arm's length now. Lille is really at arm's length now. Our next league game is actually going to be at home against Lille. So we'll have the opportunity to put them even further away. But yeah, for now, first game after holiday, we get the 3 points. We get some of our best players coming back into the starting 11 and really coming back to a physical level that looks a lot more in line with what you'd expect of them. And so I think for me, that's really the first positive. And if you're talking about the players, I think the dominant one of the night is Desiré Doué, who turns in a really strong performance. In particular, the second half of the first half. So the last 20-25 minutes of the first half, I think he decides that, enough is enough and that, we need to do something to win this game. He actually gets moved to the left flank. And all of a sudden, obviously, it's still Desiré Doué, so he's still in his styles. There's still, stuff that he tries that doesn't work out. He's still sometimes trying to do too much on his own. But yeah, man, once he gets going, he's such an addition to this team. And I think if you compare to, not only the line of attacks that we had yesterday, and we'll get to that, but even our other attackers that we have, he's got such a mix of being able to provoke and create stuff, but also physically muscle his way through defenses, and ultimately he's the one that scores the first goal at the dead of the first half on a glorious pass from Fabian Ruiz. That pass apparently takes out 7 Paris FC defenders out of the equation, which is insane. So kudos to Fabian Ruiz for this one. But yeah, kudos to Desiré Doué, sorry, who makes the right. It's not even a run. He finds himself in the right pocket of space. He has the right way of controlling the ball and bringing it forward. He waits exactly the right amount of time to force Trapp to commit, and then the finishing is actually something that I noted as well, because he sends a really hard shot towards the keeper. So he's not aiming for next to the post or anything fancy or anything. He's just shoots with a lot of power, and you can see Trapp actually flinches away from the ball. So there's really something to be said about just sometimes, just knock it as hard as you can toward goals, and it sends a statement. And sometimes goalkeepers aren't necessarily gonna have the right reflex of getting in the way, and in this case the shot goes past Trapp, a little bit above him, a little bit to the side of him, but honestly it's and the ball goes past. 1-0 at halftime. Honestly, yeah, I think we start the game strong. The first 10 minutes are quite positive and there's a lot of energy, and then we kind of fall into a lull. There's a game stoppage at the 10th minute because Warren Zaire-Emery kind of knocks down there's a hit between the knee of Warren Zaire-Emery and the head of Paris FC goalkeeper Trapp, and so he stays on the ground for a long time. Medics come on and kind of destroys the momentum of the game a little bit, because from that point on, yeah, the game just falls into a lull, and we knock the ball around, we try to create stuff, but it's not really that cutting. I think in quite a few cases, it's mirror what I was fearing a little bit, which is that first game back after the holiday, and with a lot of players coming back into the starting 11. There's passes to no one. There's like little misses in terms of the timing of the runs and the calling for the balls and the passings and so on. And so you get quite a few situations that could be very dangerous, that could be like potential goal scoring situation that we just don't take all the way because like there's a little bit of disconnection between the players. And I'm thinking of the Joao Neves pass to no one when he's in actually like a pretty good position to shoot after some nice work for Dembele. But there's a couple of other situations as well where like we get not too far from the area and just like a little bit of disconnection. So we fall into a lull, and like I said, like Doué really steps up on the accelerator towards the end of the first half. It really does make a difference. He managed to score the first goal, and we go back to the locker room at halftime 1-0 up. And at that point, it's like against a Paris FC team that really didn't try to create anything, that sat with a 5-4-1 at the back. A little bit surprising because so far this season they had been creating a lot of game, but at the same time, given the amount of players that they were missing and the opposition that they had, can't really blame them. Like I would blame Nice for giving us a similar game, and ultimately they come back in the second half with different intentions, and I think that's something that probably their coach told them, but they start trying to isolate Zabarni and put him in situations of being in 1v1 situation versus their winger, and trying to provoke him into like what we know he doesn't like, which is when he's challenged by a fast pacey winger and having to run back towards his goal. And the goals that they score, at least the penalties that we concede, it's exactly this kind of situation. Zabarni gets tricked into like moving a little bit forward and then like leaving too much space open at his back. The PFC player turns around faster, and so Zabarni is caught in a position where he's not in the right space anymore, and he's not in between the PFC player and his own goal. And so he has to run back around. Luckily, when the run curves towards the center, he manages to get level with the PFC player, and then there's a shoulder-to-shoulder kind of situation in the area. The referee whistles a penalty. Honestly, like I really don't think it's a penalty. I think it's shoulder-to-shoulder, which is by the rule and completely fair. I've seen stuff saying that Zabarni pushes his arm outward, and that's why that's a penalty. I've seen stuff saying that there's a contact between the ankles. However you want to put it, honestly, like obviously I'm biased and I'm a PSG fan, but in this situation, I really don't think it's a penalty. And even more, like it's kind of annoying because I think if the PSG doesn't get whistled, it's actually like a pretty decent defensive action from Zabarni in terms of catching back on his earlier mistake. I think the initial movement where like he gets taken out of position and creates an opportunity for the PFC player to take a run at our goal, that's pretty dreadful, and we've seen that of him before, so I was really annoyed at that. But then the way in which he comes back and gets shoulder to shoulder and manages to muscle his way back into control of the ball, I thought that was actually pretty good. So kind of annoying that we get a penalty against us on that. And the other thing on this one is that the other two players that might have been able to help, Pacho at some point looks like he's going to be cutting the PFC run, then moves away and keeps on the marking of his own attacker. Can't really blame him for that, but I thought the I'm going, I'm not going was a little bit indecisive from him. And then like the other one, which I think Luis Enrique was annoyed at, is that Chevalier really stays on his line and doesn't really try to meet the run when it gets to the area. And I think when the two players are shoulder to shoulder, if Chevalier is 3 steps forward and collects the ball because the PFC player at some point has a bit of a heavier touch, then like nothing can be said about it. And so that's a very, very slight fail, if you ask me. Penalty happens. Too bad Chevalier goes the right way, but the penalty is very well taken, so it's scored. And then you see something that I always really enjoy about this team, which is like the ability to react and to really like come back on terms when we get challenged. And so within 2 minutes, it's not like we were throwing like 10 players forward or anything, but we get a chance to break. Zaire Emery has a lot of space in front of him and takes a wonderful run. Dembele creates a little pocket of space for himself on the right, manages to cut back inside on account of the PSG defender, I think it's Otavio, not being very clean in terms of how you want to manage Dembele on this one. And so Dembele takes a curling shot, which gets deflected past trap, and it's 2-1. And within 2 minutes, yes, PFC has equalized, basically out of nothing and on the penalty. But 2 minutes later, we're back 1 goal up, and it's pretty clear that we were never really like in danger of losing control of the game. And then after that, like, the second half drags on. I think the second half is less comfortable than we would have wanted. I think PFC do try a lot more than in first half to be able to create chances. Ultimately, they only have 2 shots on goals, both of which are pretty easy saves for Chevalier. So it's not like I personally I didn't have any moment of feel that little feeling of dread at the back of my head of oh my god, are they gonna make it? Are they gonna be able to come back? Are we gonna tie this one? I think it was always pretty clear that we had this one in the bag. So 2-1 win, pretty comfortable, pretty dominant. I would have wanted a wider score line, but it is what it is. I'll take the win. Marseille, in the meantime, fumbled at home against relegation contender Nantes and manages to lose 2-0 with 2 red cards shown against them. So the end of the game is kind of funny this way because the fans are poking fun at Marseille. Obviously, Marseille is on next game in the Trophée des Champions, so the French Community Shield on Thursday. And so the fans start poking fun at Marseille, start singing their song. And this is where like I really get annoyed because the fans get blamed for singing their anti-Marseille song. And honestly, there's a couple of times where like the speaker comes on and reminds them that they shouldn't be singing discriminatory songs or something. Then like the game gets stopped, and frankly, like it's annoying for 2 reasons to me. So like first, like, and Luis Enrique says it very well at the end of the game, is that in literally nearly every stadium in Ligue 1, there's chanting going on against opponents, sometimes more or less borderline discriminatory, sometimes like fully insulting and so on. And it very much feels like the only place where those things get picked up is in Parc des Princes. There's never, even if in the worst of French stadium, in Nice, in Lyon, in Marseille, in Nantes, where they have like really like sometimes offensive chants, there's never anything said or anything done about it. And all of a sudden we're in Parc des Princes, and the lights are on and the cameras are on, and we sing about Marseille, that's our rivals that just had a pretty like ridiculous loss that we're facing next week, and oh my god, like let's stop the game and make a big deal out of it. And the second thing where it's annoying about this is that yes, like no one would defend discrimination in football. No one defends racism in football. Me, like absolutely least of all. But in this particular case, the song is not discriminatory. So I'll give you like the lyrics, and you can make an opinion for yourself. The lyrics are in English, so I translate. In the mud, there are rats. In the sewer, there are rats. The rats are everywhere. They are the Marseillais. And the reason for this song is that when it was created, which I think was sometimes in the 90s, there was a huge strike of all of the guy taking up the garbage in Marseille. And so, like, for a long time, they were on strike. So the garbage was piling up in the city. There were literal rats in the street. And that's when, like, that year, like, the Paris team was traveling to Marseille. And that's when the song was created. So now, like, people are saying that it's offensive and derogatory because it's racist against Arab minority or whatever it might be. It's absolutely not the case. It's never been the case. That's not the story of the song. That's not what the song says. And so, like, you know, the referee and the league and so on make a deal about it. That's just simply not true. And at some point, like, you know, you've got to be able, as fans, to sing against your rivals, to poke fun. It's not an insult. They're not calling them names. They're not doing anything. They're saying, like, essentially, Marseille is a dirty city and there are rats on the street. Like, please, like, can we please say that in a stadium? Like, it doesn't feel like completely out of line. So that's my rant on this. Luis Enrique came out in the media as well after the game in Spanish, which really means, like, one, he was really annoyed, and two, he wanted to be very precise about what he was saying. I think he did a really good job at it. We'll see if anything comes out of it, but honestly, like, enough with this, enough about it. Like, you know, like, people have got to back off around these sort of things in the Parc des Princes, or at least, like, start being consistent. And then, like, if you stop the game in the park for something like this, there's a lot of Ligue 1 games that are not going to go to the full 90 minutes, let me tell you. And I'm sorry, but Lyon, Nice, Nantes, Marseille, they're going to be losing some serious points, because honestly, like, this is really, really light compared to what we see in other stadiums. So that's kind of my rant. I think in general, like, the refereeing, just to go to the wider point, was in line with what we've seen this weekend in Ligue 1 again, which is pretty average. I think there's a couple of, like, borderline penalty for PSGs in the first half that don't get called. So the first one, they just don't call the foul, which feels borderline, but really, like, more obvious than what they call for PFC in the second half. And then 2 minutes after that, there's a foul on Doué, which initially gets called as a penalty, and then, like, VAR calls that the foul is outside of the area, so it gets moved into a free kick. So, like, those two were a little bit, like, I think, iffy in the way they were dealt with. And then, like, the PFC penalties, like, I've said it, I don't think it was a penalty in the first place, but, you know, it is what it is. And then, last thing, like, I'll go very quickly through player performance. I've talked about Doué. Dembele, I thought, was interesting, definitely better than what we've seen of him in the first half of the season. It felt like he was on the way back, physically speaking, with still some ways to improve, but definitely more creative. It feels to me, and, like, I don't know if other people felt the same, let me know in the comments, but I wouldn't be surprised for a player who's faced so many injuries and who's been, like, on and off injured for the last 6 months, if mentally it might take him a bit of time to just have the confidence that he's back at full form. Because sometimes it feels like, you know, he could be doing more, he could be, like, more into it, but it just, like, takes the foot slightly off the gas, not because he cannot press it, but more because, like, he doesn't want to push his body too hard. So I don't know. That was, like, a reading that I had. I think overall, physically, you can see that he's not yet 100% because he starts the game very strong. He starts the second half very strong. And in both cases, you see him, like, kind of decrease in intensity as time goes. So, you know, we'll see if he keeps improving in future games, but definitely a step forward versus what we had in December or even before that. Mayulu, pretty average game, honestly, but it felt like he was the odd man out in this front three, and he was being pushed to play in areas and roles that weren't really, like, suiting him, and he wasn't really, like, getting the pace of the game. So yeah, like, not as convincing as what we've seen sometimes. Definitely on the left at the beginning of the game was just, yeah, he shouldn't be playing there. Like, it's just not his position anymore. In midfield, we had, like, our usual trio of Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, and Joao Neves. All three of them, I think, did well without like anything more to it. I think Vitinha tried to do like his usual, like controlling the game from down on the pitch and build up the game out of defense. I think he did that reasonably well. He didn't really contribute forward. I think it's always a question mark because when Dembele is on the pitch, we know Dembele likes to drop down and kind of do the number 10 thing further up on the pitch. So there's less of a need for Vitinha to move upward to actually do the same thing. So maybe that's why. Fabian Ruiz, apart from his assist, which was wonderful, I think it takes a bit of time to get into the game. Bit of a diesel there. He gets going towards the end of the first half, and I think in the second half he's more convincing, which is actually the opposite of João Neves, who I thought starts the game really strong in the first half. You see him, he's contributing, he's creating opportunities, he's up, he's back, he's everywhere. And then in the second half, he seems to drop down in intensity a lot, and you don't see as much of him. And then in defense, Nuno Mendes has a really good game. Physically, he's just so strong, so good. New haircut, and he really puts in a performance. He gets subbed off for the last 10 minutes as well, so a few minutes less in his legs before the game against Marseille. Pacho has a wonderful game as well. Really dominates the PFC striker Goebbels. So that's a really good performance. Zabarni, the penalty is a bit of a shame because I think in the end it's not too bad. It's not a great performance either, but I think in the first half he's definitely controlling. He gets puts on the spot a couple of times in the second half, but it's really not a disaster or anything. And I think the penalty is more than generous, so it's too bad because that's really the thing that we hang against him. And then Warren Zaïre-Emery also not as strong as what we've seen of him in December. I think offensively, he has that assist and that run on the second goal, which is great. He does try to fold into midfield and contribute a lot, but I think he was not as sharp as what we've seen of him sometimes, both in terms of offensive contribution and in terms of what he does defensively. And the fact is that a couple of times Zabarni is left to his own devices because Zaïre-Emery is just too far off and doesn't have time to come back to help. So that's a bit, average for him. And then finally, Chevalier, nothing much to say about it. He makes the saves that he has to make. Too bad on the penalty, it goes the right way, but it's really well taken, so you can't really blame him for that. His distribution was okay with nothing really to say about it. So, okay game for him. Nothing much to report on this one. So anyway, this is what I had for you guys on this first Paris derby of the year in around 40 years as well, in a long time. A win for PSG 2-1. We go on to the Trophée des Champions on Thursday in Kuwait. Because what makes more sense than in between two games in Paris in a week, just going off to Kuwait to play Marseille, whatever it might be. So we're going to be talking about this very soon. Obviously, it's going to be a must-win game for us with a trophy on the line. But in the meantime, if you've made it so far, please drop a like on this video as always. Please subscribe to the channel for more PSG and football content on YouTube on an almost daily basis. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the game and what you take out of it. And don't forget, Paris v Paris, and as it says on the screen, ici c'est Paris!